Today, I'm gonna give you guys a little preview of how in-depth I can get and how I understand values.
That the entirety of the cosmos is accessible through each and every individual's mind, connecting to the great mind, the great spirit.
Welcome back to the channel, collectors. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys my understanding of values and how I apply this understanding of values into creating dioramas, which I find it very important. Okay, I'm going to go very in depth talking about why I know about values, and also I'm going to show you guys how I work with them using a bit of airbrush. And because it's very in depth, it's also a little preview of what you can get as a patron. Alright, so if you're ready, let's begin. So, what are values? So values are the absolute lightness and darkness in relation to the colors around it. So how much light and how much dark is in the color is communicated through the values. So why are values so important? Why am I placing so much emphasis and creating one whole video just because of values? So values help communicate the form. So this is most important because, as you guys can see, a circle can become a sphere just by adding some greys and blacks and whites. Isn't that amazing? Nah, it's not really amazing, but with this same concept, you can create cuboids, you can create cones, you can create pyramids, you can create all sorts of different shapes, and all these are the basic shapes which you need in miniature painting. So when you split your miniature into these basic shapes, it allows you to communicate the form of the miniature very easily, and it gives you an idea where to place the highlights and shadows, which makes amazing looking miniatures. Secondly, it increases the readability. So what is readability? Because the miniature is so small, looking at this miniature so far away, it's very hard to understand what it is about, especially with more complicated miniatures. Readability is increased through refining the shapes and exaggerating the shapes. Say for example, my face is some oval, just give it a bit of shadow under the eyes, a bit of shadows under the nose, and look, it turns into a face already. As you guys can see from this image here, just by having some very basic blacks and whites, you can immediately tell that it might be Abraham Lincoln. And yeah, this is really amazing. And imagine you can do that just by adding a few little bits of well-placed blacks and whites, and you can effectively communicate your miniature. Thirdly, this one is also pretty important. It is about visual interest. Because values help you increase and decrease the contrast, you can create some visual interest by creating some textures. You can make some certain areas more highly contrasted, and this allows you to make the image look more visually appealing and look more interesting and attract the view of the viewer. To understand values, we need to understand the type of shadows there are. So refer to this image right here of a sphere. So you have the source of light where you get the highlight, then you get this intermediate transition area. That's where usually you get the most saturation, and then it gets more and more saturated towards the core shadow. Core shadow where it is the darkest, because there is where neither the main source of light nor the reflected light affects the image, the form. Lastly, you get the reflected. Here are some tips to remember about shadows. The lightest dark is darker than the lightest light. So what does that mean? So a rule of thumb is the reflected light never gets higher in value than the mid-tone that is shown on the form. Okay, so you just need to make sure that you don't add white into the reflected light and make the values strange all around. So I'm going to demonstrate it to you guys. So as you guys can see, this is the diorama I'm working on. But once you turn it black and white, immediately you can see that the source of light, which is coming from the staff, has a higher value compared to the darker shadow areas. And on first glance, it actually looks like, wow, the atmospheric area looks a bit light, too light. But once you turn it black and white, the illusion is very clear. There is a main source of light, and then there's a fill light to show the form of the diorama. But the thing is, values were had to be very well controlled so that one doesn't overpower the other, and then you contest for your attention. So in summary, objects that are closer to the main light source have higher value. Directional light tends to have a cast shadow. Diffuse light tends to have a more diffuse shadow. Alright, so if you're ready, let me go on to show you guys how I sort out the value. Alright, so first and foremost, I use my phone light to sort of like emulate the light source which is coming from the stuff. What you want to do right here is you want to do it to an angle where you get a very nice cast shadow, because I find that with a nice cast shadow it allows for the composition to look a lot more dynamic. So I start off with a black coat. What I'm using is Mr. Hobby 1500 grit spray can primer, and what I'm gonna do is, instead of having it just pure black, I'm gonna add in a bit of black, scale black to violet ink, so that the base color is actually a very dark violet. I find that in values, violet has a very low value for it to be very saturated. So I'm going to coat the entire diorama in this black violet mix first. Okay, you want to do this as evenly as possible, and it allows the entire diorama to have a little bit of color rather than just being pure black, which nothing in real life exists just in pure black. Next, I'm gonna use a little bit of airbrush thinner mixed in with a little bit of watercolors white. I find watercolors white is the best white I've used so far for airbrush, because it gives a very smooth coat and it doesn't really clog the airbrush. Okay, so just testing it out a bit before spraying it. So I'm giving it a white coat where the light source is, and as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm spraying the diorama directionally, all the way radiating from the light source. I find that this gives the best representation of how the diorama should look in reference to the picture which we took before. Okay, as you guys can remember, we took some pictures before using the handphone light and creating a cast shadow draft. So right here, with reference to that picture, I'm trying to replicate that image. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to make the white more intense where areas that are closer to the light source, and very lightly spritz the area that is further from the light source. So the area that is further from the light source, say for example the groundwork, is very lightly spritz from a further distance. Okay, so what you guys can see over here is I'm very lightly spritzing the outside areas also, because this is what I'm doing to demonstrate and illustrate the ambient light. So what is ambient light? Ambient light is sort of like the residual light, because in this cave I'm painting this diorama in a cave. So the ambient light would be a little bit cold, dank and eerie, and that's the effect that I'm trying to go after. because this diorama is really huge, I want to make sure that the silhouette of the diorama is also interesting. So I'm adding in a bit of a fill light from the bottom. Okay, so this fill light allows the diorama to show when in photographs, so that the bottom part of the diorama just doesn't fade into darkness. So I'm using white to spritz in that area also. Now I'm just making minor adjustments to the values, just to make sure that the entire diorama is logical in terms of value wise. So after using the airbrush, my final step would be mixing a bit of violet and black to create the cast shadow. So far the only cast shadow that I found that's really created is behind the Dracoline's leg. So I'm just going to paint in the cast shadow. Okay, so right here, as you guys can see, just painting in the cast shadow right here. It's very important to have a picture reference for this so that you can paint the cast shadow in the correct shape. The form that is closer to the surface tends to be sharper, whereas as you guys can see, the rest of the Dracoline doesn't form a very sharp cast shadow. So what do you think, collectors? Do you find this video useful? Let me know in the comments below. How do you understand values also? Just share with me your thoughts. I would really like to hear your thoughts. That will be really helpful to me so that I get to become a better painter also. If you found this video useful, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell notification icon so you know when we post the next videos. Okay, we post videos on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays and sometimes Saturdays. Okay, and if you really want to support the channel, please head on to our Patreon. Patreon allows us to continue producing awesome content like this so that everybody gets to become better miniature painters together. Okay, so patrons get exclusive videos and early access to many of my tutorials, and you guys get to talk to me so that we all get to become better miniature painters together. So I hope you found this video useful. Also, I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you guys.